Welcome back to another episode of Help My Business is Growing, a podcast where we explore how to grow and build a business that's healthy and sustainable. I'm your host, Kathy Svitina. As your business grows and you start to hire salespeople to do all the sales activities for you, you're going to have to set up a well thought out commission plan. Unfortunately, too often companies have confusing, unclear, or just plain wrong commission structures for the business model and the industry that they're in. The challenge with setting up a commission structure is that there's so many different variables involved, and it's really easy to miss something important. You want to be fair and provide the right incentives so that you can attract and retain the top salespeople, but you also need to make sure that it makes sense for your business as well. In this episode, my guest is Chris Michel. He is an outsourced sales manager that helps business owners who are self-managing sales and shouldn't be. He has been around sales and management for over 30 years, primarily in the HVAC world. And we're going to be discussing topics such as when is the best time to start hiring salespeople in your business? What should you as a business owner look for when you're hiring these salespeople? How do you set up the commission structure so that it makes sense for your business model? And also, if a 100% commission-based model is right for you. Join me. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kathy. It's great to be here.
Awesome to have you here. So today we're going to be diving into the topic of sales and commission. And I'm super excited to talk to you because you're such a wealth of knowledge and information when it comes to these topics.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So there's a lot to talk about, and I want to jump right straight into it. So when it comes to sales, when do you think it's the best time to actually start hiring people who do the sales specifically versus having someone who's already in the business doing the product or service delivery doing the sales?
Yeah, so this gets to be a tricky situation, right? Because let's just choose a business owner, for instance, right? You have a business owner that is delivering the sales as well as the product. They're doing all of the work, right? They're the solopreneur or they're a small business, and they are fighting tooth and nail to get everything done. They do an okay job with sales, but now it's to the point where if they don't give somebody else the reins on sales, then they just won't have the ability to really jump out there and do the things that they need to, right? And to grow the business that they should. So it's going to be different for different businesses, but you're going to reach a saturation point where, quite frankly, you as a business owner can't do much more, and you need that extra person or two people, right, as salespeople that are strictly focused on bringing you business. They don't do anything with production. They don't do anything with the service. All they do is sell. And that's when it's time, when you get to that point, to that teetering point where you go, oh man, I'm stacked, right? I only have so many hours a week. I can only do so much. And you're not staying up till midnight every night. And you're not, getting up at 4 a.m. to make all this stuff happen. That's really kind of the pushing or the tipping point, if you will, when you need to consider bringing on somebody for individual sales.
So it's being aware of your own capacity and the capacity of the people that you already have in the business, whether you have the capacity to do the sales and the people that you have in the business can do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this, Kathy, gets back to number one, if you don't have a coach, you probably should get one, right? I mean, we all should have a coach. And I'm not saying that because—
Is that a business coach or a sales coach?
Yes, it could be a business coach. It could be a sales coach. But I think for all of us, we all need some sort of a coach in our life. So whether it's a business coach, a life coach, whatever, right? Because we need that third person perspective. We need that out of body experience that can take that 10,000 foot view and look and go, there's the whole, right? There's where you could expand or make these things different, and you could grow your business. So we need somebody with an objective view. And we're so subjective. It's our baby. It's our business, right? And as solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, we're the ones who are making this thing happen, and we're doing everything. But if you don't have somebody to bounce ideas off of, then you don't know when to make that shift. Having a coach makes that shift easier, right? It makes it more evident to you, right? So I know business finances enough to get myself in trouble. But if I don't have somebody like yourself in my business helping me to understand, here's the direction you need to start heading because of this, this, and this, right? If you want to do these things, and it's the same with sales. If you want to do these things, you need this, this, and this, right? So you need somebody to kind of push you out of your comfort zone and get you that next step or that next level, as they say.
Yeah, I think this is mostly the case of you just don't know what you don't know. So having someone who really can take a look at your business from a 10,000-foot perspective and look at it from an outside view and say these are the holes that you need to fix can really benefit you because again, you just don't know what you don't know.
Right. And it could be a sales coach. It could be a finance coach. It could be a marketing coach, right? I mean, it could be just a business or a life coach, but it needs to be somebody with an outside view. And no offense to your spouse or to your best friend, those probably aren't the best people to have involved in this, because even then they're still a little too close to the situation that can, you know, unless they're really good at that, you know, jumping into the objective perspective. So, but typically you want somebody who's close enough, but not necessarily in your tight circle of friends. You need somebody just on the outside of that, because they're going to say things that are going to offend you. They're going to say things that are hard for you to hear. And you need to hear, you need to listen to what they're saying. And this is just one of those things, right? So it's an opportunity.
Yeah, that's true. And I always say you don't want to hire a yes person. You really need someone who's going to push you out of your comfort zone because it is uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah, I had a client this morning, a potential client, I should say, I met with this morning, and I went in with the mindset that I have nothing to lose. As an outsider, I have nothing to lose, right? As a coach, whether I get their business or not it's not up to me, but it is up to me, right? If I really want it. But if I go in with the attitude that I'm here to help you and I'm going to say some things that you're not going to like, and they got upset, not in a bad way. They were like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize if I don't do this, then this is going to happen." Right. And it was one of those eye-opening situations for them that kind of gave them that aha moment. Right. And so I love those aha moments personally, you know, as well, you know, not just from my perspective, giving it to them, but also when I go, oh, you know, Kathy, you and I've had conversations where you say, "Oh, are you using this? Are you doing this? Are you trying this?" And I go, "Oh, that's perfect. You're right. I didn't even think about that." Right. Or it didn't even dawn on me that that was available to me, because we just don't know. Sometimes, like you said, we just don't know what we don't know.
Yeah. So now that let's say that you figure out you need the salespeople, you need dedicated people, one or two people in your business to actually do the sales activities. What are some of the things that you should be looking for when you're hiring a salesperson?
Oof.
What makes a good salesperson?
um, some,
I know this is a
some,
very packed topic.
some would say arrogance, and no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's a great question because there's so many options out there, right? There's so many people that want to get into sales and they think they're good at sales and they've been doing sales for 2 years and they've had some success, and all of a sudden they become an expert. And that it's not necessarily true. They very well could be, but one thing I've learned is never call yourself an expert. Let somebody else do that, right? so
Very true. Yeah.
um so with sales, I think I'm decent at hiring people. I think I can see and read people, and part of that comes about with my 30 plus years of experience in sales, right? Because you get to read people and you get to see things. I will tell you that my hiring percentage is still 50-50. And that's what's crazy. But I have somebody that I know and that I work with that if I really want to go find a good salesperson, I'm going to engage this particular person or this company, and I'm going to say, "Hey guys, we need your help." And there's all kinds of personality tests that you can do, and there's all kinds of metrics that you can look at. But there is this company that I use, and they have it to where they guarantee the hiring of an individual if they meet a certain criteria, a certain level. They guarantee that they will work for you. And what it shows you is, are they even capable of selling? But do they want to sell? Not just are they capable, but do they want to, right? So it all comes kind of full circle to, sometimes you get the guy or gal who's 50, 60 years old, and maybe they're kind of at their end of their game, right? And they just say, "I'm tired. I don't want to sell anymore," or, you know, "and I want to do consulting or management or whatever," right? And
Yeah.
so they're not a good candidate for a salesperson. Could they come in and sell for you? Absolutely. But at the same time, do you want the 20 something that's hopefully they've got these college courses now where you can actually become a salesperson, right? That's a degree program. That's part of the programs that they set out now. And it's like, finally, right? Somebody has a degree program. But you get these folks out of college and they're steps ahead of where they would have been had, and where I was. I couldn't study sales in college. I studied speech communications. I learned how to talk. And so thank you for laughing at that. But yeah, I really did. I learned how to talk in college, but one of my favorite classes was persuasion. And I found out that I was actually good at persuasion, and that's part of sales, right? So you have to know, how do you find a good salesperson? Well, number one, they've got to have a background, and no offense, their resume isn't necessarily going to be the end all be all. That's a great place to start. But what are they doing against their goals, against the metrics, against the KPIs, against the things that they were put in front of, that were out there for them to achieve, right? And not only that, but then, do they take direction? Are they a high I person or a high D person, or the DISC profile, right? DISC. All of that comes into play as to whether or not they're going to even be decent for sales. I mean, there were folks that were high C's or high S's that I was like, I don't know if they're going to make it. And they did well, right? Because they knew how to take what they had and the personality that they had, but they knew how to adapt to the people that they were talking to. So they've got to be able to adapt. They've got to be able to answer and ask really good questions. Resiliency. And I will tell you, if you can find somebody who's been living on 100% commission for a good portion of their career, they're probably a really good salesperson, because not many people want to live on 100% commission, nor do they even get excited about the prospect of 100% commission, right? I mean, when you talk about you eat what you kill, a lot of people go, I'm good. I really want a security blanket base, right? Kind of thing. And it's like, if they're really good at sales, guess what? They're 100% commission, more than likely.
And this is a great segment into my next question that I had. You really light it up well for me. So, when it comes to compensation and commission structure for the salespeople, if you really don't have that right structure in place, it's so difficult, one, to track the right top performance. And your best salespeople might actually leave because they're going to have better opportunities elsewhere, and they feel there's no way for them to earn more money in your company, or get promoted. So striking that balance between being fair and providing the right incentives, but also, how do you make sense that it actually makes sense in your business?
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the elements of a good commission plan structure for your salespeople? What are some of the things that people should be thinking about when they're putting that together?
I never should have brought up commissions. No, it's a great question, because you're right. There are certain compensation programs that I've looked at in the past, and I went, yeah, there's no way I'm going to do that, because there's no way you're going to compensate the things that I could do. I walked away from a job, and I was recently reminded of it from my former boss. I was working for a food processing equipment company at the time, and I was paid a base salary plus a percentage of the commissions, but it was based on the gross revenue, the gross profit revenue that they made off of the jobs. That was a very interesting situation, because I needed to make X amount of dollars in sales, which the territory had never done, which not sure that the territory could have done at the time. But like I said, I was reminded recently by a friend of mine he's a friend, but he was my boss at the time. And he came back and said, hey, by the way, we're averaging, multi-million-dollar sales in each one of the territories now. And your concern was, now that was 17 years ago. Okay. So in my defense, it was 17 years ago. So to get to the question about how do you know what a good comp plan is? One thing I will share with you is, and this is going to be hard for business owners to understand and to appreciate. If you have a good salesperson, they're going to make more than you. Okay. I'll say that again. If you have a good salesperson, they're going to make more than you. You have to be okay with that, because they're going to drive revenue to your business that you couldn't do. Right. And so they should be paid a portion of that commission, or that a portion of that revenue that they drive to your business. Now, there comes into the question of, is my pricing right? How do I know if my pricing is correct to pay the commissions that I want to pay these people, or to pay the bonuses, or the all these kind of things come into play. And I think there ought to be bonuses that are set up. If you hit a certain goal, there's a target out there. If you need 2 million in sales for the year or for the month or for whatever, right? Then, hey, they hit the $2 million and they go 2.5. Hey, awesome job. You get a 1% kicker or a 0.5% kicker, depending on the business and all that other stuff. But there are ways to set up programs. And again, it's going to depend on the business. I hate to give the HR response of it depends, but it really does, because you may want to give somebody a $30,000 base and a 5% commission on everything that they sell. You may want to do a tiered commission program, meaning on the lower end equipment, or lower end products, you're going to give a smaller commission, maybe 3% or 4%. And as they go higher on the scale, they get more for what they do. Now, there's a balance in there, right? Because you can't price yourself out of the market because you're paying 10% or 15% commission on a product that you can't garner a 50% margin on, right? So there's all kinds of things that go into that equation. But a lot of times it's what you're going to find that there's probably some sort of a base or a draw against commission. And then you have this commission structure that's set up that will make sense to you, to your business, to the industry that you're in, right? Because software sales is going to be a different commission plan than hardware sales in computers, or even in equipment sales for food processing, or in heating and air conditioning, or in televisions, right? Whatever. But they're all going to be a little bit different. You've got to find what works for you in the industry. You can find a lot of information out there, by the way, on commission structures for your different industries. And some of these places now, like Glass Ceiling and not Glass Ceiling, is it Glassdoor? Trying to remember the
Yeah,
recruiting.
Glassdoor.
Yeah, Glassdoor and some of these other recruiting locations give you an idea of compensation programs and how that works. And do you give them a company car, right? Are they going to be traveling in a territory? Is that part of your compensation program? Do you have benefits? Do you not offer benefits, right? All of that's going to be part of that compensation. But in terms of the commissions, it's a lot of it comes back to the industry and what's going on with the industry. You may not be the top person, you may not be the bottom, but you definitely want to figure out, is it 2%? Is it 7%? Is it a mixture? Is it just something flat across the board, right? What makes sense? And how does this small base work into it if you're going to offer that, right? Is it 18,000 a year that you offer as a small base just because you don't want them to starve, but at the same time, they're not going to be paying all their bills with that?
Yeah, that's a good point. And to that, it's really important to understand your business financials so that you can actually model these different scenarios. So don't get married to just one particular one. Take a couple of them, tiered approach, or whatever it might be, and plan it financially so you can see how your business is going to look like with all these the different scenarios, and pick the one that makes the most sense for you.
Yeah. And that's probably where you come in, where, we can have the conversation. You and I can have this conversation too, where you talk about how on a compensation program, for instance, when I was helping run heating and air conditioning companies, right? And I was setting up price books, you have to build in a margin for your salespeople, right? And the comp program has to be built into your pricing. And there's ways to do it. There's spreadsheets and, right, there's all kinds of things that'll work. And you understand this, I'm sure, far better than I do from the P&L standpoint. But that all has to make sense, because if you don't have the comp program built into your pricing, you're losing money as a company, right? You're
Yes.
giving away money. And there's spin-off conversations that are happening in my head, by the way. So, but one of the things I've learned is be transparent with your salespeople. Help them to understand, here's the money that we put into the program. Here's the money that we've built into this product for you to sell it. If you come off of that price, your commission goes down, the company's percentage goes down as well, right? And if it's 1-to-1 or 2-to-1, right, the company gives up 2 points for every point that you lose, whatever that is, right? Make sure that it's equitable, but that you're open and honest about it, that you're transparent. And when I've done that with people, salespeople go, okay, I get it. I may not like it all the way, but I get it. But it also drives a behavior, because you don't want to encourage the sales team to drive, profits down into the tank where you're not making any money. because they're giving everything away, right? They're giving 20% off and you're still paying them 5% commission. Who just won in that scenario? The sales guy and the customer, really, but you as a business didn't.
And the other point that I want to make here too, what I've seen in companies is it really benefits as well if you have it well documented and well communicated. Because if the rules change, especially in a smaller business, if the rules change from month to month and salespeople have no idea and the targets keep changing, that decreases the morale. The salespeople are just going to be demotivated. They're going to be looking at places that they can go. So having that documented and clearly communicated and having the set target that doesn't move is something that a business should be striving for as well. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of the things I've seen is you get these companies that go, oh, let's raise the commission rate to 7%. Oh gosh, that's not working out. So 2 months later, they go, we need to bump it back down to 6%, right? And then it may have been 4% to start with. And all of a sudden you're starting to play these games with their money and they go, wait a minute, I can't even predict what I'm going to make anymore. And oh, by the way, if I do the numbers, now I have to, kind of like I did with that company years ago. Hey, I'm going to have to sell $5 million, $10 million to make the money. And that's not even possible in this territory. I mean, I could be the greatest salesperson in the world and that won't work. But you're right. I mean, one of the things I think is critical is as a sales organization, I wouldn't do any more than one commission structure change per year, unless it's detrimental to your company, unless something tragic has happened, COVID strikes, right? Or some major thing happens in your industry. I would not change your pay structure, but once a year. And once a year is there's not a problem with going back and having a review and saying, here's what we found, here's what we're doing, here's what we can do, right? But again, to your point, let's be open. Let's have that conversation. Let's have the dialogue with everybody involved. They don't need to like the prices. By the way, one thing, a buddy of mine in sales and I were talking about this one time, and I said, Eric, got a question for you. Does it really matter what the price is? And he thought about it and he goes, no. And I said, right. If you're a good salesperson, the price should not matter, because if you know how to do your job and you do it well, the price doesn't matter. Now, you can't charge $50,000 for a $5,000 piece of equipment. You can't charge $20 for a $10 widget, right? Setting yourself up for failure if you're not properly evaluating you, the company, and the product or service that you're offering. But don't be afraid, when people say, hey, we were charging $6,000 before, now it's $8,000. Now it's $9,000. What changed? Well, this changed and this changed and this changed. Equipment costs have gone up. Manufacturing costs have gone up. This is that. Oh, by the way, this all gets pushed forward to you, the customer, and I'm really sorry, but this is how it works. Okay, right? If I can build the value and I can tell you that this widget, manufacturing costs have gone up, labor costs have gone up, right? All of these things that surround it have gone up, and we're just going along. We have to go with what the market is doing. It's just part of the game. But how do you build that up? If you just say, well, it was $6,000 last year, now it's $8,500. They go, well, I'm going to go find somebody else who's going to sell it to me for $6,000, right? Right. So, and don't get me wrong, there's probably somebody out there doing that. They're selling it for $6,000. So it's unfortunate, but yeah, it's the market has to grow. We're constantly evolving, right? I mean, labor comes up, labor costs go up, manufacturing costs go up. We're seeing a trend now with what's happened with COVID and everything else, right? There became a shift, if you will, in labor. And a lot of the blue collar workers go, wait a minute, I don't want to go back to work and be afraid I'm going to get sick. And especially not for $12 an hour or $15 an hour. And so we're starting to see a shift, and we're hearing things, at least I am, I'm hearing things and seeing things where there's a huge shift in the revenue being paid to these laborers, right, for their work. And they're seeing a $5 or a $10 an hour increase. Well, what does that do to your product? What does that do to your service, right? What does that do to it? All comes out in the wash, right? Somebody's got to pay for it. And eventually it's going to get pushed out to you and I, the end user, right? The consumer. Eventually a Big Mac's going to cost you $25.
Yeah, pricing is another topic, another rabbit hole that we can go down to. How do you price it well?
Oof.
and,
Yeah.
and, and I'm actually on my side, I'm very fascinated with pricing because it's not just in the cost of service or the cost of the product that you are offering. It's also in the psychology behind it,
Yeah.
the brand positioning, the marketing behind it. So pricing is a whole other topic
Yeah.
in looking at pricing, not just from a point of how much does it cost me to produce this widget or produce this service, but what is the price that I have? What type of message is it sending to the market?
Yeah. I used to work for a very specialized company. I won't name them. I used to work for this company. It was a toy manufacturer, and they had a product that nobody else could have because they had a patent on it, right? So that makes them, they're kind of the man in the industry, right? They've got this product that nobody else can manufacture, and they've got this patent for so many years. And some people used to complain about the price of the product, right? Saying, oh, it's just too much. And they used to encourage people to charge a certain margin, right? And say, hey, this is what you ought to do, and this is how you ought to do it. And they help people understand the value of what they brought to the table. It wasn't just, you need to charge this price. It was, here's why. It becomes a value proposition. What made them special? Well, yeah, nobody else in the marketplace could get it. But not only that, they were creating a product with such high quality that nobody else could even come close to that. And now they have competitors. Okay. And I can tell you right now, the competitors are nowhere near the quality of the original toy, right? They're just not. And so they're still king in the industry. They're still charging the margins and everything else, right? That they giving demand the demand for what they do and the margins of everything. It all comes back to, do you have a right product? Do you have the right service? And to your point, are you branding it properly and charging a premium for it? And too many times I see people devalue themselves. Like I said, I was talking with somebody earlier. They devalued themselves, right? They said, "Oh, we've got a certain product, and we're going to charge this much for it." And I said, "Why? Why are you charging that for it? If this is what you need to survive, and this is your cut even, break even price, why are you charging the break even price? Why shouldn't you charge more? If you want to be around, if you want your business to be around, you've got to charge." And it's, by the way, I'll say this, it's perfectly acceptable to get double digit net margins, right? Kathy, tell me if I'm wrong. I think it's
No, you're
acceptable.
absolutely right.
It's acceptable to expect 8 to 10 or 8 to 12% margins, at least, right? Because what's going to keep you in business? What's going to keep people coming back to you year after year? Is it your price, or is it your service, or is it what you offer, right? Hopefully it's you. That's why they're coming back. But there's nothing wrong with asking for and demanding 8 to 10 or 8 to 12% net margins. When it's all said and done, you're putting 8 to 12% away in the bank. You're going to need it. You're going to need a new building. You're going to need a new computer. You're going to need a new vehicle. You're going to need a new person to help run sales, right? So you need a business coach, right? So I mean, all of that comes into play. There's nothing wrong with doing that, and you're not ripping customers off. You need to understand that you're not ripping customers off. You're helping them, and you really are. But if you believe that you're hurting the customers, you're not going to sell it. You won't be providing a good service for them.
Yeah, it also comes down to providing premium service or premium product that's filling a need of a problem that the
Yeah.
customer has, and you're being well compensated for it. It's a win-win on both sides
Right.
because the person is getting exactly what they need at the service that they expect, and you are being compensating as well, and you are being able to take care of your business, your employees, and grow the business further because of that revenue that it's coming in because of that high value pricing.
Yeah. There's so many more people we need to bring in on this business discussion, right? But yeah, you're right. There's just so many things that go into how do I love the name, Help My Business Is Growing, right? Because we want that. We want to know how to grow our business. And then when we get there, we're like, oh gosh, what happened? Right? Well, now what do I do? Well, if you got some close people, you've got some mentors, you've got a mastermind group that you're working with. And if you've got those things in place, hopefully you're capable of utilizing that resource and growing your business to where you won't be screaming, help, my business is growing, right?
Yeah, exactly. I know we went a little bit off the rabbit hole with the commission.
Is that what we were talking about? Huh.
You mentioned a couple of times about 100% base commission plans versus paying a salary and a commission. And I really want to unpack that because I don't see that often. I will
Mhm.
say that. And when is it the right time in your business, or when do you think it's the right situation to adopt that type of commission plan?
Well, first and foremost, I think it takes the right person. I think that I don't know of a lot of salespeople that enjoy 100% commission. I was crazy enough a few years ago to not only go on 100% commission, but then I went a step further when I was promoted into management. And I said, they wanted to pay me a salary plus a bonus or, commissions. And I said, no. And they said, what? And I said, I want you to pay me 100% commission. And their jaws hit the floor. And just like you're going, wait,
Like
what?
right the first time
What?
when I saw
Yeah.
it.
When we talked about that the first time, you
Yeah.
were like, huh? And I did that because I believe that as a leader, as I go, so my team goes, right? Or as my team goes, so I go. And so doing 100% commission, it's not for everybody. It's not for every company. If you have a shorter sales cycle, absolutely 100% commission is something that should be feasible and should be a conversation. If it is a long selling cycle, you may not be able to survive on the 100% commission. Now, there may be a draw against commission, and I still consider a draw against commission 100% commission because you're having to pay back all of that. So if they give you $1,000 a week, you have to pay back $1,000 before you get paid, right? So you have to make more than $1,000 in commissions. You have to make 1,500, and then you get 1,500, right? 1,000 of it was quote unquote semi guaranteed. But if you're going to do that from a business standpoint, you need to put a cap on it because you can't have somebody running amok and not selling well, and all of a sudden they're into you for $10,000. And there's no way out of that rabbit hole, right? There's no way for them to sell themselves out of that hole. So typically, I would say put a month's cap on it. So if it's $1,000 a week, you give them there's a cap of $4,000. If they reach $4,000 that they still owe the company because they're not making enough commissions, then they don't get their draw the next week, the next month, whatever the next pay period, right? But again, if it's a long selling cycle, if it takes 6 months to a year, you can't do that. You're not gonna pay these guys so much on the front end. You have to pay them a salary plus, and that's okay. But when you do that, those deals typically are the longer cycle deals are typically more expensive, and so because of that, there's more gain on the back end, right? There's more reward when the bonus gets paid. So 1% bonus or a 1% commission on the overall doesn't, it makes more sense. But again, depending on the price tag and all those other things. But there are several different ways to do it. But again, you've got to figure out what works best for you and your business. And oh, by the way, just because the guy down the street that's selling concrete is paying his guys a salary and doesn't pay him a commission, he pays him a yearly bonus or a quarterly bonus, doesn't mean that you can't pay your guys commission. Because guess what? Those that are really hungry in sales, those as they call them sharks, or as the true hunters, the ones that really go out there and are good at sales, they want to be 100% commission. They want to eat what they kill. And that's the only way to do it. If you're a hunter, a gatherer, there's nothing wrong with that. You got to work the fields. You got to nurture the leads, and you got to do the things that you need to do with the customer, right? To get them on your side, and eventually they'll buy from you. There's nothing wrong with that either, right? But sometimes it's very clearly a hunter versus a farmer. And as you get into those, there's a different pay structure for each one of those and even for your business, but your business has to be set up for that. And you have to understand, again, a lot of it goes into the selling cycle. If you have a short selling cycle, you're probably more apt to go into 100% commission because they get paid as they sell it.
And how short should the short selling cycle be? Is that up to 3 months, less than that?
I would say no more than a month. But I mean, there's going to be people that argue with me on that, and I'm good either way. But I would tell you if it takes more than a month to sell it or 2 months, right? Now you're getting into can you go a month without a paycheck? And then is the deal so sweet that when you do sell, you sell these phenomenal deals, you sell 2 or 3 really good deals, and they finally come in, and now you're making a $20,000 or $50,000 paycheck. So yeah, sometimes you can go with a little bit longer, 2-3 month sales cycle, depending on the average sale, the average ticket size, right? All of that stuff, the commission that would come off of that. What does that look like? And so, yeah, I mean, you could do that.
How about people who are managing these salespeople? Should they be placed on 100% commission as well in those type of situations?
Most of the leaders out there are going to say absolutely not. And so I would tell you, if your team is on 100% commission, I would absolutely consider it. I think you should consider it as a leader. And again, for me, I decided to do that because, again, as my people go, so I go. And I wanted to show my team that I was with them 100%, literally 100%. And so if they had a bad month, I had a bad month. If they had a good month, I had a good month. So it came down to, how am I coaching them? How am I working with them? Am I helping them to get better at their craft? Most leaders are going to be paid some sort of a base salary. And quite frankly, it's going to be a high base salary because of what they're expected to do. I would contend that if you, as a business owner, as even a sales leader, if you back off that number and say, okay, you know what, I'll take a smaller salary, but I want a higher percentage, on the back end. I want higher bonuses, or I want, if we hit these certain margins, if we hit these certain dollar amounts, if we do these things, then I'd like to do this and do this and do this, right? I want it to increase based on the performance, right? Because it's all about performance at that point. And that's where the 100% commission comes in. Somebody wants to be paid based on performance.
There's a scenario. So you talk about the team effort with the managers and the salespeople, but there's also a scenario. What if you have multiple salespeople
Mm-hmm.
working on one deal? How do you structure that, especially when it's 100% commission?
Yeah, and that happens a lot. Depending on the industry, that can happen a lot. And I've been in the industries, heating and air conditioning, or even food processing equipment, right? You have a tendency to where there's 2 different people that have been working on the deal. Nothing wrong with splitting commission on that and splitting it 50-50, right? But yeah, that is acceptable practice within the business. And if you're in sales, you understand that, right? Because if I help you make a sale, Kathy, I may want to be compensated for my time and effort, right? For the things I do for you. But at the same time, I also know that at some point, you're probably going to do the same thing for me. Because if I'm helping you, you're helping me, right? We're working as a team. So yeah, a lot of times what you're going to find is that there's reciprocity. There's a 50-50 split, or, you help me with one, I help you with one. But normally you're just going to see that 50-50 split.
Is it essentially between, because you're in sales? I mean, this is a bit of a foreign topic for me when people are splitting a commission this way. But
Mm-hmm.
between the salespeople, is there essentially a handshake that happens, or do you
Oh no,
go
you have to
and
document it.
you have to
Oh
document? Okay,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's where I was going with
yeah.
this. Yes.
Please do yourself a favor and save everybody the headache and document it. Now, sometimes it may not be documented, and you may get somebody that says, "Hey, listen, you helped me out with that. I really appreciate it, Kathy. I'm going to give you half the commission." You don't have to do that yet. You know what? I do, because you really worked hard on that. You helped me with this, and if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have gotten it. And so I go and I talk to my boss and I say, "Hey, Kathy helped me out a tremendous amount with this deal. Can we go ahead and split the commissions 50-50?" Well, then you go and talk to the accountant, or the person on staff that's handling the commissions, right? And how that gets paid. And they want to shoot you because now you've just created more work for them. But it may not be that big of a deal. But yeah, do yourself a favor, document, document, document. Please have that as part of your kind of your onboarding
Commission
sheet.
structure.
Yeah, your onboarding sheet when you hire commission, or when you hire salespeople. By the way, here's the way we pay commissions. And one of the last lines: if you do this with so and so, you will split the commission, right? But it's a conversation that needs to be approved by the manager of sales, or whatever, whatever the wording needs to be. But it should be approved before anything is done, because I don't need you going to the manager and saying, "Oh, I helped Chris on that deal." And I go, "You answered the phone and you That you didn't do anything. Well, I helped with the deal. That's not I'm not going to give you 50% commission for answering the phone.
So there has to be a documented and a clear process of what it really means to help with the deal.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like with anything. I mean, if you want to understand how you're going to get paid, you probably want it in writing. So you can say either I did or I didn't do the job. And yes, I'm getting paid according to what I did, or I'm not getting paid according to what I didn't do.
Well, Chris, this has been absolutely delightful. This was a great conversation. Before we go, I'd like to ask you, what do you think should be the next tangible step for the listeners that they can take back to their business when it comes to the sales, commissions? What should they do? What can they do this week to get them to that next level?
So a couple of things I'd recommend. One is kind of, we talked about it before. If you don't have a coach, do yourself a favor and get one. I'm not saying, hey, come call me. You can do that, but call a coach, call somebody that will help you and will work in your business and work on your business with you, right? Help you to understand some of that stuff. Once you get all that set up and you decide, hey, I've got salespeople in place, or I need to get salespeople in place. Do you have a structure? Do you have it written down? Do you have it all clearly lined out in terms of what you're going to do or how you're going to do it? And then once you do all that stuff, get the right people in place. If you have questions on that, there's plenty of different profile tests that you can take and give to people that will tell you, yes, they are good for sales, or they are not good for sales, or they're going to be helpful or not going to be helpful in sales. There's also companies out there that can help you with that hiring, the sales hiring process. I'm not talking about a regular recruiter. Okay. There are companies out there. And like I said, if you get in touch with me, we can have the conversation, but there's a company out there that can help you, and it's not cheap, but they will help you hire the right sales professional, and they guarantee it. You want to talk about almost a for sure plan, right? Get somebody who's going to guarantee the work that they do. If they can guarantee they can hire somebody that will sell for you, you want to hire them.
Awesome, Chris. Thank you so much. So
Absolutely.
Where can listeners get in touch with you?
Oh, the easiest thing to do is you text the words Coach Chris, all one word, to 21,000. And so just like you would put in a phone number at the top, and you put 21,000 in there, and then you type in where you put in the text, you put in Coach Chris, and it's all one word, Chris, CHRIS. But when you do that, you get my digital business card. You can download my info to your phone. You'll see all of my social media, my LinkedIn, my Twitter, my Facebook, Instagram, all the ways you can connect. You'll have my cell phone. You can reach out to me on my website. All of that stuff is available. And when you see that, you're going to notice something. Don't forget to ask about the red chair. Kathy knows about the red chair. She may be able to describe it, but that's the best way to do it. Is easiest is text Coach Chris to 21,000.
I love the red chair. Definitely talk about the red chair. Yes.
Ask about the red chair. Ooh.
Yes. Yep. Thanks so much, Chris. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kathy.
I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. It's definitely been an eye-opening for me in terms of learning how the salespeople operate and how they think about their commission structure. And no better person to talk about this than Chris. He has 30 years of experience in sales, and he's such an expert on this. So I'm really grateful that he said yes to my invitation to the Help My Business is Growing podcast. And hey, before I go, I also have a favor to ask. So if you're listening to this on Apple Podcast, I would really appreciate if you could go to the show, tap the number of stars that you think the show deserves. And it would really help because that means that other people can find it too. Thanks so much for doing it. Until next time.